Hello and welcome to my first attempt at painting a glowing effect. I wasn't quite sure how to do this, so watch along as I fumble my way through this. I'll be using this Necron figure to do this. Firstly, before painting, it needs building. It does say to read the instructions first, but nowhere does it tell you what these symbols mean. And it tells you to drill a 65mm hole, which is roughly this big, so you need a big drill piece. Before removing the pieces, it's best to examine them first, and in typical Games Workshop fashion, there are lots of mould imperfections all over the surface, and some of the pieces have large chips out of them as well. This is the level of standard I'm used to, so there's no surprises there for me. It is incredibly strange, however, that they manage to create nice even surfaces on the side of the parts that won't be visible. It does look like they've given me a choice of weapon, but it looks like it wants me to attach it to the actual model, which might make swapping them over a little bit harder. To avoid making your first mistake, don't push the pieces together unless they've been modified, because pushing them together without leaving a gap between the parts is impossible unless you trim the little pegs down first. I believe the actual term for it is called the piston effect. If you use an aggressive glue like Tamiya Thin and squeezing the parts together, hardly any gap filling will be needed. On a serious note, the sprue placement on some of the parts is pretty bad and requires a lot of work to smooth out the surfaces once cut off. If you have delicate skin or are afraid of knives, you can chicken out and buy a little thumb guard to protect your little fingers. I personally will be painting this in sub-assemblies, so I'll leave the outer parts off for now, as it will be harder to paint underneath when they're attached. I do hate it when they don't put a hole in the gun barrel, but show they're capable of doing it on a different piece, so drilling it out is a must for me, I'm afraid. Once drilled out, if any burrs are left behind, it's quicker and easier to melt them away with the special glue. Now, no Warhammer Mini wouldn't be complete without having to whittle something. Therefore, I'm compelled to shave down the little knife on the end of the gun. In all honesty, I have no idea why I did this, but it made me feel good, so I'll do it again if I need to. Once I'd picked the rifle that looked the nicest to me, I'd stumbled into two problems. The first being, I wanted to keep the hose from the second gun. My first thought was to take the attachment point off of the gun and to try and attach it to the gun I like, but before just cutting away and figuring it out, I thought I'd think about it while addressing the second problem of swapping the weapons out. I worked out there was a little pin on the inside of each side of the weapons, and removing it completely would mean the rifle wouldn't be permanently attached to the hand. This meant that if you wanted, it would make it a lot easier to swap the weapons out and to paint them separately. To keep the hose, I also worked out that if I removed the little ball, it would reach perfectly to the back of the robot's hand, and then welding it together using the Tamiya Extra Thin actually made it look like it was supposed to be there in the first place. All that was required was a tiny bit of sprue glue to just close the little gaps. As for the base, I do like to glue the pieces onto it. I do like to use the jelly type glue, as it does seem to stick the pieces together better than the Tamiya Extra Thin. I didn't have a 65mm drill bit, so I drilled the hole using the largest drill piece I had. Luckily the kit came with 5 pieces to put on the base, so I could cover the hole up with this little rock. The 5th piece I could have attached was this little skull, and figuring waste not want not, I just glued it to the flat surface of this rock. To give the base some more depth, I used technical paint. There's no way I'm going to ruin a brush. I remembered someone kindly told me that they used this piece of scrap metal to apply the paint with, and from now, that's exactly what this little piece of metal is going to be used for. So I'd like to say thanks again for that brilliant suggestion. Now on to the actual painting of the model. I could set up a wet palette, decant the paints onto it, water them down a tiny bit, apply 3 thin coats, but I found it's just simpler taking it straight out of the pot and just slapping it onto the pieces. If you apply it using the brush strokes in the same direction, when it's dried, hastily going back over it again in an almost heavy dry brush motion and brushing perpendicular to your original brush strokes will make any visible brush strokes you left behind disappear. But if you're quick on the first coat and don't keep touching it, it'll dry flat anyway. I did want to keep the original paint scheme quite simple for this model, like all Necrons, but I felt I needed to add a little bit of gold paint on some areas of the figure to help create a little bit more visual interest rather than just having an all silver little figure. For painting the base, I dug out my Citadel paint pot opening tool and slapped whatever brown colour this is all over the base. Well, the dirt bits, not the actual rocks. I'll paint them differently. As I wasn't sure how to create a glowing effect, I started randomly painting areas white that I wanted to glow. It was, however, that looking at the model, it still looked boring, so I got some of my inks out to help tint the colour of some of the silver areas. For this example, if you apply burnt umber ink over an area you wish to tint, and then get a tissue of sorts, trying to remove the ink with the tissue will reveal that the ink has stained the part underneath, whilst keeping its metallic features. I did use blue on some of the areas. This, however, did work for some of the pieces, but not for the large flat area on the outer armour. For the deep recesses inside the armour, I applied a red ink in the hope to make it look like energy was flowing between all the pieces. Normally I would use black for panel lining, but I thought mixing it up this time might make it a little bit more interesting. For some reason I thought to create a simple glowing effect I could just apply some ink over the top of white. As inks are transparent, I was hoping the deeper recesses would stay dark as the ink pulls up, and the upper areas would stay light where the paint was thinner, a little bit like speed paints, but that really didn't work. So I figured it would be plan B and use an airbrush. But before that I applied white ink in all the deep recesses to help me in the later stages. I really didn't like the blue panel on the armour, so I just painted over it with black, leaving only a tiny bit of blue around the edges for a bit of visual interest. Or I might not have painted all the way to the edges and forgot. Before the airbrushing, it's time for a global wash, where I apply Agrax Earth Shade using a thin coat all over the model and a thick coat over the details. I forgot I hadn't painted the stones on the base, so I hastily applied a stone colour over the rocks, followed by a watered down burnt umber ink, washing it all over the base, and then drying it off a little bit with a little bit of tissue. Now to create the actual glowing effect, I sprayed the brightest white that I own, covering the centre completely and misting it further out from the glowing source. Fluorescent paints help make the glow stand out more, so I watered down some red. It says red on the tube, but that's definitely pink. Huh? Oh well. I may have watered down the paint too much, but spraying multiple very thin coats seemed to work the best for me, as trying to rush a thicker coat just resulted in this lovely little spider webbing. As you can see, the second time round it only requires a tiny little burst, and once dried, reapply a couple more times. If you do happen to have these paints and think I'm joking when you can water it down, it does look like it's not going to mix, but after a couple of minutes it will happily go through a 0.2mm nozzle. And this is my very fussy airbrush, so I can happily say that these paints are actually very good quality. After checking the coverage under the light, when you're happy with the results, I found applying very small white highlights near the centre of the glowing spots sold the illusion even more. I also highlighted the skulls with the white because I realised I painted them the same colour as everything else. When applying the dry brush to highlight all the edges on the base, I reactivated some black paint in the dry brush that I didn't clean out the last time I used it, and darkened all the edges. When I'd actually cleaned the dry brush this time round, I went back over it again to actually lighten the highlights I'd just done. To correct the overspray that the airbrush made me do, I repainted all the areas, making sure I didn't cover the areas that would naturally be in the glowing light. I would also say, if you're not going to use a wet palette like me this time, keeping a point on your paintbrush is nigh on impossible, so maybe getting paint directly from the pots is not a brilliant idea. Being that I'm stubborn, I still won't use the wet palette that is directly underneath my left hand. To start the final finishing details, I like to go around the model and highlight all of the upper edges and repaint some of the smaller details to make them stand out, as well as applying edge highlighting to the bottom of all the casting defects left behind to help them stand out. I then dug out some actual red paint and applied it to the eye and the lenses on the face. Luckily when it dried, it didn't stand out too much. To make the glowing energy thingamy bobby things on the rifle glow even more, I applied white ink in all the deep recesses again. Now I'm not sure if the camera did it any justice, but applying white ink around the recesses in the energy ball at the back did look good. Applying a small dot of white ink on the eyes also helped as well. There's no way I'm capable of edge highlighting all those little letters, so rubbing a graphite stick over the top does the same thing. As I do trim a lot off the pegs, I personally do have to super glue all the pieces together, and as I have a separate plan for the other weapon, I did also super glue mine in place as well. But if you wanted to swap them out so you could choose your weapons before your battles, removing that little peg inside means you can just slide on the parts easily. For some strange reason, I never think anything's complete unless I've used a chemical. I decided to apply dirty down rust on the bottom of the armor plates and gently dab it with a wet tissue to help it create a nice little rusty effect. Now, being that I'm not a professional, and this is actually the first time I've tried doing this, I believe if you were going to try this, the result that I've achieved would serve as a more reasonable benchmark to set your expectations. Again, this was painted mainly for a tabletop, so imperfections don't really worry me at all. I'd just like to say thanks for watching and have fun.